morning. So yeah, I mean, this literally was, I don't know, 11 o'clock last night. There were several amendments, a lot of people speaking, a lot of passion around this issue. And so I'll kind of frame this up, and I presume you guys don't live and breathe this like David does or I do. So let's just kind of step back a little bit and talk about what the sick leave bill is, and then we'll kind of transition to what it is today. It goes into effect February 1st, 2016. So there's a lot of things that need to happen from last night's bill to rulemaking and moving forward. So let's step back about 2 years ago. 2 years ago, Healthy Tacoma came to town, and you would think they live here, but some of them do. And so it's really a movement. It's a national movement that is, you see city to city, you see region to region. Some states have taken on mandatory paid leave, but really it's been started at the city and the local level. And we see different groups pushing this issue. A lot of it's all the labor movement that really is where it's gotten more traction in terms of moving people and moving the issue. So 2 years ago, it took a long time for them to actually come up with an ordinance. Came up with an ordinance. It was a tiered system. It was very convoluted for anybody to follow, let alone business owners. And this applies to anybody, anybody who employs people. So it's nonprofits, business, government as well.
Government's excluded.
Well,
excluded themselves.
Okay. So it was a ramp. Somehow when you work in a smaller business, you get less sick than a larger business. So and maybe it's just the number of people that are in there, but smaller business had a different threshold than larger business. And we've always said, I always ask, what's the goal? And if the goal is one of your employees is sick, they shouldn't be at work. Pretty simple. I mean, if it's your kid, you need to take care of somebody, understandable, and most business owners are there. So you're talking about setting a safety net for those bad actors that are out there. Because most businesses I know protect, care for, it's their number one asset, their employees. So why would you make them work while they're sick? You get everybody else sick, get myself sick, right? So it's a tiered, convoluted. What we heard out of Seattle was it wasn't really the sick leave policy that businesses objected to. It was the $1 million that had put in place to do the tracking on the different levels, whether people were coming into town, going out of town, and so forth. So we said from the beginning, if we are going to have a policy, yes, we think the current system, voluntary system, is the right system. It's, if I want to attract employees, I'm gonna have sick leave. I'm gonna have a bunch of other things to make sure that I'm protecting my employees as best I can. And so you have choices where to work at. But obviously this movement kept going. Other cities adopted it, and Healthy Tacoma kept pushing on this 14 days. 14 days. It's almost 3 weeks, more than most people take a vacation in a year. And that's just a lot. I mean, and I understand. I mean, my wife's a cancer survivor, so things happen. And those things happen, but you plan for, we save up, and I think individuals save to make sure things happen that you can protect yourself. And so this thing's moved. We came down, we've negotiated, we've talked to labor, we've talked to different groups. We've brought together a coalition of different businesses throughout this community and really worked hard to say, okay, yes, we'd like zero, but if we are going to move, how would that look? Signing up with a business license in terms of what the threshold looks like, we thought that was good. And so you start to go through 3 days. It's a minimal mandatory paid leave. So so what's in the bill, by and large, are things that we agreed that are some principles. Are there things that are in there that we don't agree with? Yes, absolutely. And at the end of the day, maybe that's a good compromise. I mean, when you think about legislation is about two sides coming together, negotiating somewhere in the middle. And I think this legislation, still strongly argue with one piece, is some of that middle ground. Do I think that we need to have this city by city? So do you have a choice as a business owner to be parked in Tacoma or be parked in Fife, where you don't have veto tax, you don't have this mandate? Those are realities. But you also get something uniquely different when you're in downtown Tacoma or Tacoma proper. So that's kind of how we've gotten over time to this place. And, but now I think we should talk about some of the details. And I'm going to kick it to David.
Sure.
David's the detail guy, so.
Absolutely, I am the detail
Big
guy.
picture.
And I couldn't resist bringing this because I'm not even sure I completely understand what all's in it. This is the 40 pages of amendments that came up last night. And so we're still kind of sifting through the impacts of the various amendments, those types of things. What I can tell you is that businesses will have to provide 24 hours of paid time off to employees for a list of reasons. So the focus is what they call safe and sick. And so it's if someone's sick, if a family member's sick, a dependent's sick, someone in your household or maybe outside your household is sick, or if you have to take it to find, it's the other piece of that is safe time, which is seeking protections for domestic violence issues, those types of things. That's the other piece of it. Those are the two uses. They're very line itemed out in the code. So everyone in Tacoma will need to update their HR manuals to make sure that they're reflecting what the ordinance has. However, when you look at the number of hours being required, you're talking 24 hours, 3 days. You look at what's out there on the street today, about 2/3 of all businesses already provide some type of paid leave. That means there's a third that'll suddenly have to, start providing it. Those are by and large your restaurants. Typically in restaurants, shift swapping is what they use. This allows for some of that. Other ordinances that we've seen in the country don't.
And if you think about it, if you work at a restaurant, a lot of the wait staff, they're getting paid minimum wage, and then they have tips on top of that. And most people don't understand that. We did a poll recently and it said more than 50%, 55% of people don't understand. Wait staff gets minimum wage plus the tips. So if I'm sick, I mean, this is a reason why some people do come in sick, because if I'm sick, I want those tips. And so I'd rather swap to shift with David than get paid by my 8 hours at minimum. So I mean, it makes sense when you think about it, but most people don't kind of step back and think about that. So shift swap allows them to be able to be in parity in terms of if they don't make that money versus just making a minimum wage during those 8 hours.
Yeah, and I mean, if you look at minimum wage in Washington State, we're at 940 something. We're one of a handful of states that don't have a typical exemption. So a lot of states have heard in national media talking about how tipped wage earners earn less and they get tips to make up the difference. That's not the case in Washington State. We're at 943 now. On minimum wage, and it's tips on top of that. So your typical restaurant worker in Seattle earns about $30 an hour take home. So that gap, if you don't have that option for shift swapping, goes away. If you lose 2/3 your pay or you stay on sick, it doesn't solve the problem that they're trying to solve.
So you're more apt to have wait staff that are sick.
That's what it boils down to. And we've seen in Seattle, people actually now, University of Washington and the city of Seattle joined together and did a study of how effective their law was. And they actually found that those companies that were now granting paid time off were actually seeing less people take time off for being sick than those who weren't giving paid time off. I don't quite understand that, but that's what the data was showing. If you got paid time off, you're more likely to come to work sick than if you didn't get paid time off, which is not what I think anyone expected to see out of that. So we're still trying to figure out why is that happening. We want people to stay home when they're sick, especially if they've got a benefit to do so. You're getting paid for it. Do they know that? Is that information to the employees? What's the rationale behind that? Tacoma's ordinance, what it means for businesses, if you don't offer paid leave now, you need to start providing it February 1. There will be a number of sessions over the next year explaining what that looks like for businesses. You'll need to update HR manuals to make sure that if you are providing paid leave now, you're providing it consistent with the new law that the city's put in place. There's some exemptions, there's some funny tweaks in there. A lot of employers provide benefits that accrue on a per pay period basis as opposed to per hour worked, which is the way this law is structured. We're trying to get some stuff sorted out in the rulemaking process that actually says, yes, if you're providing a per pay period and it's at least matching what this is intended to do, you're good. We were able to get something in the actual text of language that says you can front load. So some other companies at the beginning of a fiscal year or an employee or a calendar year say, all right, here's your sick leave for the year. Use it when you're going to use it, whatever. And then when it's gone, it's gone. And that option is in the law as it stands today. The goal here is to make it as minimally burdensome for those employers that are already meeting that threshold as possible without requiring hundreds of thousands of dollars, millions of dollars of additional record-keeping administrative burden. Because the reality is we're trying to get benefits to the employees, not spend it on overhead costs. Sorry.
And, yeah, no, and and the kind of the threshold or the way that this is checked is on your business license. When you apply for your business license in 2016, you will check, yes, I comply with the Tacoma's sick leave policy or whatever the ordinance number is. And if you say no, you're not going to get a business license. So if you don't, clearly you can operate without a business license if you want. Good luck. They are ramping up enforcement for that. So so that's going to be the check, and then the idea is this starts to become an education, a dialogue. We're going to do seminars in terms of how do you correct your HR personnel policies, and what do you need to do? How do you get maybe certification in terms of that? I think, like David said, most businesses I think do this. It's going to a PTO system, paid time off system. That's probably going to be what most people, if they haven't done that, are going to need to do to be able to comply with this.
There are a couple of big questions that come up, and I want to just touch on them briefly. You know, people who are working in businesses or who own businesses or who manage are familiar with the cost associated with some of the tracking, and it's going to vary business by business depending on what we have out there today. There's a question on the enforcement side, how much it will cost the city to enforce. Right now, for the next fiscal biennium, they're looking at 400 to 800,000. So that's 2.5 FTEs there, so I can put on the enforcement tracking side of this. But that's a projection that came up just last month, but wasn't included in the budget, so they're still figuring out how to address that. The other question is, so which businesses does this apply to? It applies to every business that operates in the city limits with a business license. So that means if you're located here and you have one employee, it applies to you. That means if you're located here and it's a branch or something where you've got them spread out through the country, it still applies to that branch that's here in Tacoma. It's those types of businesses that have multiple branches that are finding some of the biggest challenges in meeting Seattle's, because it's creating a new system for some subset of employees that could be one, or it could be 100, or it could be 1,000, but it's some set of employees that's different from the entire rest of the company. If you have a business that's located outside the city of Tacoma, and you do work inside the city of Tacoma, the city says you're supposed to have a business license. That also means that those employees that are coming to Tacoma have to comply with the paid leave law. We were able to get an exemption for the first 80 hours basically in the city limits. So your electrician who's doing a job in Seattle and doing a job in Tacoma and doing a job in Olympia has to track the hours that are inside and outside of the city of Tacoma for the purpose of accruing this leave. Now that floor of 80 hours means that they will accrue 2 hours of paid leave, and no one's quite sure when they can use that. They will use that the next time they're scheduled to be in Tacoma. And they use that at other times, or how does Tacoma force a company to do that when they're not operating? So that floor of 80 hours, we're going to work on that, because that's the 2 hours isn't going to give anyone any benefits. A 320-hour minimum, where you're actually accruing 8 hours an actual day of work, that starts to make sense, but 2 hours just, it's getting a little goofy. So, so we're continuing to work on this.
That's what
I
I'm
stand today.
Amendment package.
Yeah,
so.
and so I don't have much else. I don't know if there's any questions on this or impacts, but I can try.
What class of employees? Is it just full-time, or includes all employees?
All employees.
Even seasonal employees who might be working in the summer, or?
Yes. And so you begin accruing on your first day of employment. You accrue 1 hour per 40 hours worked. So if it were a full-time, if you were 40-hour weeks, you could accrue that 3 days that we talked about 1,000 hours into the year. So roughly half time, actually that'd be 18 hours over the course of the full year, 18 and a half hours over the course of the full year. Seasonal employees, if you release them and then retire them, and I have to go back and look at the exact language, but I think it's within 6 months, they get to keep what they accrued before. So it's one of those odd record keeping things that business will make sure they're doing. So you hire seasonal. If it's more than 6 months, they don't keep what they accrued before. You can begin using it on, we went back and forth on this, and I think we ended up, I'm going to look, it's either 90 or 180 days. After 90 or 180 days of employment, when you can use it. I want to say it's 90, but I can't recall exactly.
So
I'm not seeing it quickly.
Well, David's looking that up. I mean, what's going to happen? So starting today, but for the next 3 months, 4 months, the city's the finance director is who's charged underneath this in terms of the rulemaking and the determinations on different things. And so they are going to start the rulemaking process. That's where some hearings are going to be. There's going to be a committee, I presume, task force that will help in terms of guide these. And as you know, in the devil's in the details. And not that we have any devils in Tacoma, but that's where we need HR people from a variety of different businesses to make sure that these rules that are being made are with the intent of the legislative body, as well as fits with it. Doesn't make some goofy things like this 80 hours is, that earning 2 hours of leave isn't going to help anybody. So I think they talked about it last night, but it still doesn't work with what really the legislative intent is.
It is 180, so it's the 181st day someone can use it. It is 6 month separation. So if you didn't have seasonal employees that were there for less than 180 days and would go on for more than 6 months, it would be pretty tough. Can't fit that exactly, but as we worked 3 months, 9 months gone, 3 months back, this wouldn't end up applying to them. It'd basically be excluded.
Yes.
Are any
They're not.
It's everybody. Everybody minus government.
So the one piece I'd comment on that is under the way it was adopted, collective bargaining agreements can choose to exclude themselves.
they have to express them?
Yes. Yes.
How did the vote go down last night?
Well, so there's a big push in terms of this is 3 days, and in the second year you can, because of the accrual stuff, you can get up to 5 days in the second year and beyond. There was a push to start at 7 days, and that was kind of moved down to 5 days. There wasn't actually that vote because of some other amendments came up. I would say there's probably a group out there. There's probably 3 council members in particular who really wanted the 5 days at a minimum, and that's Mello, Woodards, Ibsen would be the ones that really were pushing in terms of, if we're going to pass policy, let's make sure it's meaningful, kind of that type of discussion. But at the end of the day, it was 8-1, the one being Bo. And I think, a lot of speeches last night by a lot of people, but by the members, it's basically, we need to have a system in Tacoma that is Tacoma. And that's where their thought was, this is we hope this isn't the beginning, and now we're going to go to 5 days next year and the year after. We think it's a minimum mandatory paid leave. So you can do a lot more than this, but the idea is that this is kind of where the council thinks that people should be. I don't know if that helps.
Yeah.
A little longer.
Yeah, I was a deficit carryover.
What's in there now is the first year is 24 hours. The carryover provisions are a little odd, and we've had some discussion on that. At the end of the year, anything that's not used gets carried over to the next year, and you can use up to 40 hours in the second year. At the end of the second year, anything up to 24 hours that wasn't used can be carried over to the next year. So the carryover provision gets a little complicated in there. To the question of the vote, the whole series of amendments played out, different people voting on different ones in different kind of groups. So the one thing I will note, so I guess 2 things. One, Kate Martin, the news stream, did an excellent job live tweeting it. So if you really want the play-by-play without watching 6 hours of video, you can kind of scan through her tweets and get a pretty good feel for what was going on. And I think my only other comment, and this is, I am a lifelong Tacoma citizen, born and raised here, et cetera, is that I was a little disappointed at the tenor of the conversation in the room. It was probably the council member the council meeting that I was at where there was the most intimidation, threats, and name calling that I've ever seen in a council meeting. And not just by the public either. And I was disappointed by that because, we don't bring the type of politics that you see in DC or even in Olympia to local issues in Tacoma. And I hope that the message comes out clear that that's not acceptable. What happened last night happened despite that tenor, not because of that tenor. So that's just a general comment on the council meeting as a Tacoma citizen.
Yeah. It was, intentions. People are passionate, but I'm one that's agree to disagree. I understand. And this is not a, it's not a party thing. It's not a business labor. This is what's best for Tacoma. And so, what makes sense and what a package that nobody likes. I wouldn't say, I mean, not, no, but in terms of some of the pieces, which means maybe it is a good package in terms of kind of overall picture. Do I, business owner, do I think that, we need somebody telling us, what's best for our employees? I think, I know my employees the best. But I also know there's bad actors out there, and I don't know if this is the right tool or not, but and I think David said it well. A lot of people are saying, oh, well, this is a watered down version. There's only 20 other cities in the nation that actually have a paid leave. Out of 35,000, you said 20,000, I've heard different numbers, but you think of all the cities in America, we're one of 20 that now have a paid leave law. So, so I think it's still a little bit untested in terms of what this looks like, and we are leaving, and it's not a watered down version. It's leading. So, yeah. You had a question?
I'm wondering if it's supposed to come.
No. It took the First Amendment
Should be better. They have to post it by then. They have to.
Okay.
They have to publish it
in
by
December when they did amendments and they had to codify it. It took.
It was the next day. I was all over it, let me tell you. And they already showed the meeting, so.
Thank you so much.